One second. All right, hold on. We'll retract really quick, Marvin, and I'll let you jump in really quick. All right.
Yeah, no, it's no problem. Should I
Just want to do a quick
share
introduction.
my screen?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I was about to say, I just realized no one was seeing the presentation. Give me a second.
So good afternoon, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Yancey Singleton. I use he, him, and his pronouns, and I'm the Bridgeport Program Manager of Public Allies Connecticut. I'm super excited to kick off an epic week of MLK and Black History Month workshops being presented by Public Allies and Prevention Corps members. Today will be the first in our Lunch and Learn series, happening every day this week at 12:30 p.m. And again, I can talk forever. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to our stars of the day. We have Olivia Piper, Anissa Carter, Armando Gonzalez, Lisa Marie Davis, Marvin Bell, and Delilah Gray, who will be inspiring us all today about King's philosophy of the beloved community. And you all can take it away.
Okay, can you guys hear me okay?
Yep, very good.
Okay, I'm just gonna share my screen. Okay, so we are doing the beloved community. It's presented by Anissa Carter, Olivia Piper, Lisa Marie Davis, Marvin Bell, Armando Gonzalez, and Delilah Gray. So we'll be
Lisa Marie, can you put it in presentation mode, or is that gonna
I don't know, where is that?
Good of you.
Yeah. At the top, yeah. The to the left, like all the way to the left.
Where?
Like yep. And next to file, you see edit and then view.
Okay. Now what?
You gotta go to view.
Go to view, yeah.
And then,
I'm on view.
well, normally it would allow you to click present.
Let me see.
I can try to do it.
Does somebody else want to share?
Sure. I'll grab it. So you just, here, wait. You have to unshare your screen and then I can share mine. Thank you. This is gonna work. Okay. Is that working? Well, it's loading, but is that good?
Looks great.
Okay, cool. All right. So you can just tell me when to click and I'll click.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to be presenting the beloved community, and that's why I said our names. So on this slide, we're going to be presenting the 8 practices of a beloved community from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s philosophy. These are the practices that have guided or aided in our journeys as PACT allies. They are struggling. They are struggling with fear, forgiveness, openness, love, embracing conflict, seeing redeeming qualities, moving toward liberation and reconciliation. The 8 practices are a part of who we are and what we do, whether we're aware of it or not. Our actions and inaction are guided by these principles. Next slide, please.
Is this the right one?
I don't know, my computer's running slow, so did we change it to?
Yeah, just one more, and then that's my start.
Slide 3.
Mhm. It's perfect. So the first facet of the beloved community is struggling with fear.
Wait 1 second. Did you go to slide 3?
I was just on that. No,
So it's my connection's really slower, so it's just didn't show it to me.
it was slide 3. I'm on it right now.
Okay, thanks. So being a public ally means being able to incorporate all of the practices of building a beloved community in how you engage with the community and inspire change. We'll be addressing each principle and sharing our own personal reflections and experiences through the eyes of a public ally. Welcome to our journey. Take it away, Marvin.
Thanks, Lisa Marie. So to preface this facet of the beloved community regarding fear, I wanted to read Dr. King's words on fear. He says that we must unflinchingly face our fears and honestly ask ourselves, why are we afraid? This confrontation will, to some measure, grant us power. We shall never be cured of fear by escapism or repression. For the more we attempt to ignore and repress our fears, the more we multiply our inner conflicts, end quote. And so in my understanding of struggling with fear, I wanted to refer back to some personal experiences or just like personal reflection. And I think there's often an implicit but really resounding internal sense of fear when we start something new. So starting my journey as a public ally, I felt this resounding fear. And it resulted in me asking questions like, will I be good enough? Will my supervisors be proud? Will my being a public ally serve a larger purpose? This resounding fear impacted my self-esteem naturally. And I was left thinking, right, that I would not have been selected for this opportunity had I not been qualified. So where in fact was this fear coming from? Which made me think of imposter syndrome, which I think is something we can all identify with, and in particular, how it manifests at the most inopportune times, most notably when we're benefiting from our hard work. Thankfully for me, this fear was assuaged as I realized that I had everything I needed to excel as a public ally. And now in hindsight, I look back and I feel a little upset that I even felt that sense of fear, right? But fear is not something that we can control. At least when it starts, it's not something that we can control. But it's wonderful to work through fear and realize that like your initial apprehension, that initial fright that you had was nothing more than smoke, and in fact, not real.
So next we are going to talk about forgiveness. And I'll just read this quote that we have here from Dr. King. So, quote, "We must develop and maintain the capacity to forgive. He who is devoid of the power to forgive is devoid of the power to love. There is some good in the worst of us and some evil in the best of us. When we discover this, we are less prone to hate our enemies," end quote. So I personally, in reflecting on this slide, I was saying that I think that forgiveness, specifically within the setting of a beloved community, can be a really powerful thing and a very vital thing. So Dr. King believed that the beloved community itself could and would transform adversaries into friends through reconciliation, compassion, and understanding. And as we've discussed, in our weekly meetings with our cohort, though it has become clear that, historically and through current events such as, our divided, political landscape and social landscape in this country, that not everyone is always willing to come to the table to learn and to listen. I think that those who are should be encouraged to do so through this spirit of goodwill that is seen within the beloved community, through being heard and through listening to the ideas of others. This idea of reconciliation as a barrier breaking force and forgiveness as a barrier breaking force is a really powerful one. And as a beloved community teaches us, those who are willing to listen and to lead with compassion should be forgiven.
So the next topic or next facet of the beloved community is radical openness. And I'm not sure if you all remember, but we read a bit of Bell Hooks and her interpretation of the beloved community in conversation with some other guy whose name slips my mind right now. And her understanding of radical openness, Bell Hooks says, it is, quote, this place of radical openness is a margin, a profound edge. Locating oneself there is difficult yet necessary. It is not a safe place. One is always at risk. One needs a community of resistance, end quote. So in my experience, radical openness is about recognizing how the work I do is a kind of activism. And so for you all who might not know, I work at a homeless service provider system as an equity and engagement associate. And I don't necessarily see the space for this sort of radical openness, this salient activism in where I work, in large part because radical openness demands that the workspace be a space for relationships and dialogue at the cost of content, summative assessment, and so-called academic rigor. And consequently, the system I work in, the system we all work in, I think, is meant to track and score individuals, to gather us, to assess us, to elevate or demote us. And I think that is quite the opposite of what community is supposed to be. And so I continue to realize, or I've realized that these spaces do not foster radical openness. Instead, they foster reservation, distrust, and moderation, which really points to the reality that it's really hard to locate these spaces where we feel like we can be radically open, where we feel like we could be activists for whatever cause matter to us. And I know since graduating from undergrad, it's been really hard to find these spaces. And I don't think not where I work not being a space like this is a bad thing. It just points to the necessity of finding those spaces where I could be where I can be radically open. And I think that's the essence of what Dr. King wants us to get from this radical openness. Like, even if you don't find it one place, it's certainly available in other spaces. And perhaps that you can also create it yourself too.
The next topic that we have in mind was love, and I wanted to start by saying what the definition of love, according to Wikipedia, is. Love means to be deeply committed and connected to someone or something. King focused on the role of love as a key to building healthy communities and the ways in the ways in which love can and should be at the center of our social interactions. Being part of Public Allies, what we can say in our work, there is inspiration by multiple groups of people, and love is always the key. Many in our community need help and are not receiving it. We can love our community by simply being generous, ethical, fair, kind, and peaceful. These gestures cost nothing but can make an extreme difference in a person's life. As Martin Luther King once said, love is the only force capable to transforming an enemy into a friend. And love is the greatest force in the universe. It's the heartbeat of moral cosmos. And he who loves is a participant of being of God. Being part of Public Allies, I have always realized that the way we engage with one another, the way we pull one another together is where we can most likely make a difference, such as our biggest inspiration, which is Martin Luther King.
So next we have embracing conflict. So when I was sort of ruminating on this, I was thinking about how embracing conflict has always been personally something that's very difficult for me to do. And I think that that's not sort of an uncommon thing in our society. And I was thinking about how that's particularly true, especially for women. And we're often, really socialized to be peacemakers at all costs, and to sort of believe that conflict is wrong, particularly in a professional setting, which is, in public allies, where many of us may be, needing to occasionally embrace conflict. And it's sort of this idea that it's something that we should avoid at all costs, instead of sort of learning how to embrace it and to, deal with conflict in a way that makes everybody feel heard and seen. Um, Working as a public ally has taught me this power in embracing conflict, and it's enabled me to learn the skills necessary to do so. In creating a beloved community, Dr. King believed that all conflicts should end with reconciliation and the cooperation of all in the spirit of goodwill. And working as a public ally has given me the confidence and the skills necessary to embrace conflict. And the reason that is because I understand that at the end of the day, I have the support of my beloved community to sort of carry me through whenever needed. And I think that that's one of the highlights of a beloved community, is knowing that whenever you need to embrace conflict, you have the tools to do so, but you also have the support behind you when needed.
So seeing redeeming qualities is something that's often overlooked. It's easier to be angry than look for redeeming quality in a person. So during my journey, I've learned that though a situation may be bad or a person intolerable, there's a possibility that the redeeming qualities outweigh the seemingly drastic issue at hand. Being able to find the good in a tough situation has helped me to resolve problems in the past. Seeing redeeming qualities is one step towards practicing equality by diminishing the conflict to a more manageable situation, leading us in moving toward liberation. Back to you, Marvin. Oh, I forgot there's a quote there. He believed that conflicts could be resolved peacefully and adversaries could be reconciled through a mutual determination commitment. Thanks.
Thanks, Lisa Marie.
Commitment to nonviolence.
So the next facet is moving toward liberation. And I'm not sure if this is absolutely intentional. And I think when Dr. King thinks of liberation, specifically in the context of the beloved community, it's economic, racial, perhaps gender, even though he didn't really detail too much around gender inequality. But instinctively, my mind went to Black liberation. And specifically what that Black liberation necessitates the liberation of all Black people. It's intersectional at its core and necessitates that we embrace our queer and trans community, that we are radically committed to anti-sexism, anti-misogynoir. And misogynoir is sexism experienced by Black women. And also that we are anti-capitalist and anti-imperialist. Dr. King was very, very clearly in talking about the beloved community, his idea of like a world joined in one is fundamentally anti-capitalistic, anti-imperialistic, anti-colonial. And so anti-Black racism is woven into the fabric of our global society. It's an interlocking paradigm of institutions, attitudes, and practices and behaviors that work to dehumanize and oppress Black people in order to benefit non-Black people, most notably to the benefit and maintenance of white supremacy. And I'm thinking in particular of, in my role as a public ally, the organizations I'm paired with is the manifestation, like a large part of our dealing with the homeless response system or dealing with homelessness in the state is recognizing that it's ultimately tied to white supremacy and who is ruled to be dispensable and disposable people. And that's often Black people. And that's why Black people are overrepresented in the homeless service provider network. That's not to say there aren't other races. Certainly Hispanic folks are represented, are overrepresented, and white folks are there, but they're underrepresented. And so seeing this play out in the field that I'm working in reminds me of the importance of thinking of liberation, right? Like the end point of all that I'm doing and the work that my supervisor is tasking me with. And I think also the work that a lot of us are doing is fundamentally tied back to this idea of liberation. And it might not be regarding homelessness, but it could be educationally. Certainly. So yeah, that's definitely one of my favorite aspects of the beloved community is liberation. And I'll pass it to Anissa now.
So my slide was on reconciliation. Dr. King believed that each act of reconciliation is one step towards the beloved community. This is because he understood that conflict and misunderstanding are an inevitable part of the human experience and wanted interpersonal, group, and international conflicts to be solved not with violence and war, but through a mutual commitment through nonviolence. I've always believed that in most scenarios, adding fuel to the fire is not a good way to resolve things because the best case scenario can't happen if you choose violence. If we want to create a community that's dedicated to nonviolence, mutual support and love, we have to learn how to resolve the tension from our disagreements in a mature and honest way. Personally, I'm dealing with quite the opposite of that. So yeah, I'm passing that on.
All right, so I'll be closing this presentation with a few words that I wrote. I wrote this in the beginning of the month, so I'm gonna switch the words a little bit. But as we end Black History Month, one man's teaching, philosophy, and activism stands out. This guy stood at the head of the civil rights movement and gave his life for a better tomorrow. Martin Luther King Jr. was a believer of forgiveness, love, and peace. Part of his goal was to move towards liberation for all people. I try to use his teachings in my everyday life as well as in the young adults I work with. In the culture that we work in, young adults are very quick to react and not think about what happens next. Part of my goal is to teach them that it's okay to forgive people that have wronged you, that it's okay not to retaliate or cause harm to someone who wants to do harm to them. This is the key element that our youth must understand. Another teaching of Dr. King that I not only use but teach to others is love. We must come into our everyday lives with love, not hate in our hearts. That as we love, we show our next generation to love as well. One of the most difficult of his teachings is that we are all people of this world who are liberated, not just the ones who are wealthiest and strongest. And that's it.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for that. I know you sort of see my party celebration emoji. So I want to thank you all for that amazing presentation. Hopefully everybody on the call sort of feels inspired the way I do. Before we do that, I just want to know, do we have any questions from the audience that they may want to ask our presenters today? Okay.
I don't have any questions, but I just want to say that your presentation was amazing. I loved it. You could really see all the hard work that you guys put into it, and I appreciate it so much.
Thank you, Kiara. See, Kiara is right in tune with our public allies fashion, right? So for anyone listening or people not on the call, public allies, what we do after someone comes into our space to provide us with their wisdom, their knowledge, and their energy, we love to give them appreciations. So Kiara, thank you for setting that off. I would love, do we have any more appreciations for our presenters today? I would love to hear one or two more before we close out. I see Sheila in the chat. She says, thank you for sharing this presentation. I appreciate the way you connected each aspect with your experience as allies. Love the slides and the way you each took turns explaining the content while providing personal reflection on the significance of each. And I believe Tan also threw appreciation somewhere in there. So thanks for that, Tan. And I just want to appreciate you all. This was definitely an amazing presentation. And also being the first, right, in a series of this repeating for the rest of the week. So I thank you all for that and for your bravery. When Raven says you guys did awesome, I'm going to use this to push my groups. No shame here. So thank you all, everyone. Yes, Lisa Marie, teamwork does make the dream work. And we will wrap up our first in a series of Lunch and Learn series. If you know anyone who may be interested in participating with us all this week, please do not hesitate to share with your contacts and your wider networks, because we want to, highlight and lift you all up. So thank you all for that, and have a nice rest of your day. Thank you.